The tank had stood there for years. Pressure built quietly inside steel walls. The street began to move. Boston, January 1919. The harbor lies quiet under a pale winter sun. A soft mist drifts above the docks. The smell of salt, coal smoke, and sugar hangs in the air. Streetcars rattle down Commercial Street. Children chase one another along the frozen curb. Their laughter echoes between brick warehouses. Workers stamp their boots at the pier. Their breath turns white in the cold. Men shout to one another as barrels roll across the planks. Some head toward the great tank that rises beside the water, a steel cylinder so huge it dwarfs the nearby houses. Its curved walls shine dark brown under the thin light. Inside waits a river of sweetness, more than 2 million gallons of molasses. It is said you can smell it from a block away. The tank hums faintly as it warms in the sun. No one pays it much attention. For months it has stood there, silent and strong. People grow used to its presence. Children walk by and point at it. They say it smells like gingerbread. A few climb the fence to taste the syrup that leaks from small seams. They laugh and run off before the watchman comes. Near the firehouse across the street, Captain McCullough checks his men. The day is ordinary. Engines rest, gleaming and ready. The city seems calm, safe, predictable. The war is over. Soldiers return home. Newspapers talk about peace, about rebuilding. Boston breathes again after long years of tension. But under that calm lies something waiting. The great tank was built in haste during the war. Its steel is thin, its rivets uneven. On cold mornings, faint cracks echo across its shell. Some workers claim they hear groans when the sun rises. Others shrug and say steel always moves in winter. No one thinks of danger. By noon, a warm breeze slides in from the harbor. Ice melts on the cobblestones. Children's boots leave wet prints on the street. The smell of molasses drifts stronger than before. It seeps from the seams like dark tears. A horse stops to sniff the ground, uneasy. The driver tugs the reins and moves on. Inside nearby buildings, typewriters click. Steam whistles blow from the factories. Every sound seems normal, comforting. Yet the air holds a strange heaviness, a pressure almost invisible. No one feels it clearly, but it is there, a quiet pulse beneath the city's routine heartbeat. Near the docks, a boy pockets a marble and looks up. The tank stands against the sky like a dark hill. He whispers that it is breathing. His friend laughs and throws a snowball. They run on, boots skidding, voices fading into the street noise. Evening comes early in January. Gas lamps flicker along the streets. Snowflakes drift again from a dull sky. The tank stands silent against the glow of the harbor lights. To some, it looks beautiful. To others, it feels slightly wrong. The air tastes of sugar and metal. Boston sleeps, unaware that sweetness can turn to sorrow overnight. The next morning breaks cold and bright. Sunlight strikes the steel tank, making it shine like a bronze drum. To the workers at the Purity Distilling Company, it is a proud sight. They call it the tank, simple as that. It holds the company's fortune, dark and thick and valuable. The tank is 90 feet wide, 50 feet high, a hollow mountain beside the sea. It can hold more than 2 million gallons of molasses, enough to fill an entire block. From that syrup, the company makes alcohol for rum and industry. It was built fast during the war, when speed meant profit. Now it stands in peace, still holding pressure from those hurried days. When it was built, there was no city inspection, no full test with water, steel plates only a quarter-inch thick, rivets hammered into imperfect seams, a giant born thin, painted to hide its flaws, brown paint to match the syrup that leaked down its sides. No one remembers who first said the steel was too thin, or who first heard the metal sing at night. Some called it wind, some called it nonsense, but everyone smelled the leaks. Children came with tin cups to scoop up the syrup that dripped from seams. They licked it from their fingers, sweet and sticky. Mothers scolded them and scrubbed their hands, but the smell lingered. The tank always smelled like sugar and rust. In the summer heat, the scent could make a man dizzy. In winter, it hovered like a ghost above the street. Inside the firehouse across the street, men grew used to the sound. A deep groan now and then, a faint rattle when the wind hit just right. They joked about it, said the tank was alive, said it had a sweet tooth of its own. But jokes hide worry, and worry found a home in the night shift. The company knew about the leaks. They painted over them to hide the stains. They said if no one could see the leaks, there was no problem. No one dared to drain the tank and fix it. That would cost money and time, so the molasses stayed inside, thicker every week, heavier every day. Ships from the Caribbean kept arriving. Workers pumped new syrup through the pipes. The tank moaned louder with every filling. A few men muttered about danger, but the foreman waved them off. He said it had held before, it would hold again. By late afternoon, a warm front drifted over the harbor. The steel breathed and stretched. Inside, gas rose through the syrup, slow but steady. Pressure gathered along every seam. At sunset, the air glowed golden through the harbor mist. The tank's dark surface caught the light like glass. Children stalked to watch, their breath visible in the cold. One said it looked like a sleeping giant. Another whispered that it was breathing. They laughed, but the sound lingered longer than it should have. The city lights flickered on. The tank stood motionless, but inside it moved. Pressure rising, metal stretching, syrup pressing outward, a slow, invisible storm gathering beneath the calm. The middle of January brought strange weather. For days the cold had gripped Boston tight. Then, suddenly, the air grew warm. Sheets of ice cracked on the streets. Water dripped from roofs in steady rhythm. The harbor steam felt soft and heavy, as if the sea were breathing. Inside the tank, the change was dangerous. Molasses thickened in the cold, but now it began to move again. Gas rose through the dark syrup, slow but relentless. Each bubble added pressure. Each degree of warmth stretched the metal further. The workers nearby felt something different in the air, a faint vibration when they walked by the tank, a hum that seemed to come from under the ground. They could not name it. They only knew it made them uneasy. At the firehouse, men cleaned their engines. One looked up at the tank and said he heard it groaning again. The sound was long and low, like a deep sigh through a pipe. Another man laughed and said, "Maybe it is the syrup settling." They went back to polishing brass and winding hoses. Across the street, a delivery horse snorted and stamped. Its ears twitched at each sharp metallic sound. Rivets popped one by one, echoing like small gunshots. No one noticed. The city noise covered everything. Inside the tank, the molasses pressed against the walls. It weighed 13,000 tons. The steel plates strained and flexed. Some rivets were already loose from months of vibration. The seams bulged ever so slightly. The dark syrup sought escape. By noon, warmth filled the air. Children ran through puddles, happy to feel the thaw. Steam rose from the cobblestones. The smell of molasses hung thick and heavy, almost sweet enough to taste. Men joked about it, said it was like living next to a candy shop. But one worker frowned and shook his head. He said it was stronger than before. He said it was too strong. Afternoon faded into a golden haze. The harbor water glowed amber in the light. Ships rocked gently, their bells clinking in rhythm with the tide. The city looked peaceful again, but beneath that peace something tightened. Metal under stress, liquid pushing outward. Tiny leaks along the seams widened grain by grain. As dusk settled, the temperature began to drop again. The outer walls cooled faster than the syrup inside. A skin of cold steel wrapped a heart of warmth. Expansion met contraction. The balance broke. People walking by heard a long, hollow sound, like a deep moan from a giant throat. It rose, faded, then came again, longer this time. A watchman turned his head, puzzled, but saw nothing moving. He walked on. In the quiet hours after dark, the pressure inside the tank climbed higher still. Gas pockets shifted, rivets trembled. Each vibration sent a faint shiver through the frozen ground. And then silence again. Boston slept under the stars. The harbor lights flickered. Somewhere inside that tank, a single drop of syrup slipped through a crack. It ran down the wall and froze in the cold. One more tiny sign that the steel could not hold forever.
January 15th, 1919. A Wednesday. The air feels strange, too warm for winter. The sun glints on melting ice. Children play near the docks, chasing a ball across the cobblestones. Inside the firehouse, men finish their lunch. They laugh, pass coffee cups, and rest before the next call. Outside, the tank hums faintly, its shadow stretching across the street. No one pays attention. They have heard its moans before. At 12:40, a deep sound rolls through the harbor. It starts low, like thunder behind a wall. Then it grows louder, sharper, unstoppable. The steel gives way with a roar that shakes the sky. The tank splits open in two giant tears. 2 million gallons of molasses burst into the light. A brown wave rises, 25 feet high. It moves faster than any man can run, 40 miles per hour through the narrow streets. Wooden buildings snap apart like toys. A freight car flips, crashing down in pieces. Horses vanish in the rush. Men are swept from the firehouse steps. The ground trembles beneath their boots. Windows explode blocks away. A woman hanging laundry looks up and freezes. She sees the wall of syrup racing toward her. She runs, but the flood catches her feet. It pulls her down, slow but certain. The wave sounds like thunder mixed with screams. Inside the firehouse, chaos erupts. Engines crash against walls. Beams break and fall. Men shout, their voices swallowed by the roar. Thick syrup pours through the doors, swallowing everything. Air turns heavy. Sweetness becomes poison. The flood rushes down Commercial Street, widening as it goes. A child disappears under the surface. Barrels and wagons spin like driftwood. The smell of sugar burns the throat. Somewhere, a bell rings once and stops. In minutes, the roar fades. The flood slows, turning from fury to silence. The city is unrecognizable.
Molasses pools in deep brown lakes. Cries echo through the sticky air. A man stumbles out from the firehouse ruins. He is covered head to toe in syrup. He looks around in disbelief. The tank is gone. In its place lies a twisted grave of steel and sweetness. The air itself seems to shudder, as if the world has forgotten how to breathe. For a moment, Boston is silent. Then screams. From every corner, cries for help echo through the thick air. The flood has ended, but the nightmare has only begun. The streets are covered in dark syrup, waist-deep in some places. It glistens in the weak sunlight, smooth and terrible. People try to move, but every step feels like walking through glue. The molasses pulls at boots, coats, and breath. It traps everything it touches. Inside the ruined firehouse, Captain Cullen calls out to his men. He hears voices, faint and muffled. Engines are overturned. A horse lies still, half buried. He wades forward, his legs burning from the effort. Each motion tears free with a loud sucking sound. Outside, rescuers rush to the scene. Police, sailors, and neighbors run from nearby buildings. They stop at the edge of the flood, staring in disbelief. The street is gone. In its place lies a sea of brown, dotted with floating debris. Someone shouts for ladders. Others grab planks and barrels to use as makeshift bridges. They move slowly, step by step, over the sticky surface. Their boots make strange tearing noises with each lift. A man falls and disappears beneath the syrup. Two others pull him out, coughing and gasping. Children cry from rooftops. People trapped inside houses bang on walls. Molasses fills doorways and basements. It presses against windows like a dark tide. Rescuers smash the glass and reach in, dragging survivors through. The air is heavy and sweet, hard to breathe. By late afternoon, the fire brigade joins the fight. They bring hoses and begin washing the syrup away with seawater. The mixture turns the harbor a muddy brown. Steam engines hiss as the thick liquid clogs their pipes. Horses panic at the smell and must be cut free from harnesses. Men slip and fall again and again. From the nearby pier, a group of sailors helps with ropes. They pull bodies and broken wagons from the water. Some cry openly. Others work in silence, faces blank with shock. The sweetness clings to their skin. It will not wash off. A boy is found alive beneath a collapsed porch. His hands and face are coated in syrup. His eyes are wide with fear. He whispers that the wave came from nowhere. No one can answer him. As the sun sinks, the city glows amber. The sticky surface catches the light like glass. Firefighters light lanterns and keep searching. They call names into the darkness. Some answers come back. Most do not. When night falls, rescue continues under flickering lamps. The sound of shovels, the splash of water, the groans of twisted beams. Boston has never seen such a thing. A flood that smells of sugar but kills like fire. Night falls over the ruined harbor. The city lies half buried in darkness and syrup. Lanterns swing from poles, their light caught in the brown surface. The air is thick, still, heavy with the smell of sugar and smoke. Firefighters and soldiers work side by side. They wade through waist-deep molasses, their boots sinking fast. Each movement drains strength. The syrup pulls like quicksand. Men collapse from exhaustion. Others push on, refusing to leave. Searchlights from the army sweep across Commercial Street. They shine on broken wagons, smashed walls, twisted steel. The remains of the great tank lie scattered like bones. Steam rises where salt water touches warm syrup. The hiss echoes through the night. Doctors set up tents nearby. They use seawater to clean wounds, but everything sticks. Hands, clothes, instruments, all coated in brown film. Nurses move carefully, whispering to calm the injured. Some victims lie silent, their skin glazed and shining. A few horses still struggle in the sludge. Their eyes roll white with fear. Men try to cut them free, but many sink before ropes can reach. The street that once carried laughter now holds only low cries. Even the harbor seems still, its waves slowed by the thick spill. At the firehouse ruins, Captain McCullough keeps searching. He finds one of his men alive, trapped under a beam. Together they dig him out with bare hands. They sit in silence afterward, breathless, coated in molasses. The captain looks toward the tank's remains and whispers a prayer. By midnight, temperatures drop again. The syrup begins to cool and harden. It thickens into a crust around bodies, walls, and engines. Tools break against it. Axes and shovels stick fast. The rescuers work slower with every passing hour. A faint snow begins to fall. White flakes land on the brown surface and vanish. The light reflects off the mixture of frost and sugar. For a strange moment, the street looks beautiful. Then a gust of wind carries the smell again, sweet and sickly. It drives the beauty away. Near dawn, the rescuers pause. They stand in silence, heads bowed. They have found more bodies, children, workers, firemen. The number grows with each hour. The city feels hollow, stunned. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. One man says softly, "It looks like the earth melted." Another replies, "No, it drowned in sweetness." As morning approaches, Boston begins to freeze again. The brown sea becomes solid under the cold sky. Rescuers walk across the surface that trapped them the night before. Every footprint sticks. Every sound echoes through the still air. Morning breaks cold and gray. The city wakes to silence. No birds, no wagons, only the slow creak of ice forming over the molasses. From the rooftops, people stare down at what used to be Commercial Street. It is gone. Everything is brown, twisted, and still. The smell is everywhere, thick, sweet, heavy enough to make the stomach turn. The flood has hardened overnight. Barrels lie frozen in place. Pieces of houses stand like broken teeth. The great steel plates of the tank glint through the syrup crust. They shine dull and gray in the weak sun. Cleanup begins. Men arrive with shovels, axes, and brooms. They try to cut paths through the hardened mess. Each strike echoes with a wet crack. Saltwater hoses spray from the harbor, washing the syrup away. The mixture runs down the gutters, staining everything it touches. Horses cannot move through the sticky ground. Some collapse and must be shot. Engines clog and refuse to start. The city smells like burnt sugar and oil. Even the harbor water turns brown for weeks. Reporters gather at the scene. They write of chaos and tragedy, of strange beauty and ruin. Photographers climb ladders to capture the view from above. The images spread across the nation. A wave of sweetness turned deadly, a disaster no one could have imagined. Families search for missing relatives. Some find them buried in the hardened syrup. Others never do. Workers dig for days, cutting through layers of sticky mud. The dead are carried out one by one, silent under blankets. At night, crews light fires to melt the molasses. The glow reflects off the syrup surface, turning the streets into rivers of gold. Steam drifts into the air, carrying the smell for miles. People miles away say they can taste sugar in the wind. Weeks pass, then months. The cleanup continues. Each rainstorm brings the smell back. Every boot step sticks to the ground. Even the rats flee the area. In spring, the city begins to rebuild. New walls rise where old ones fell. Fresh paint covers the stains, but the scent remains. On hot days, people swear they can still taste molasses. Some say it seeps from the ground itself. The people of Boston carry on. They sweep, scrub, and rebuild their lives. But nothing feels the same. The laughter of the children is gone. The harbor feels quieter than before, as if the sweetness has left a shadow that will never fade.
Spring turns into summer, and Boston begins to ask questions. Who built the tank? Who ignored the leaks? Who allowed it to stand above a busy street? Lawyers gather evidence. The newspapers print new stories each week. Families of the dead file suit against the Purity Distilling Company. They say greed caused the flood. The company blames anarchists. They claim someone planted a bomb. But the people of Boston do not believe it. Investigators inspect the wreckage. They measure the thickness of the steel. They find it too thin, barely strong enough to hold its own weight. They find rivets that cracked before the flood. They find seams that were never sealed. The truth spreads like fire. Witness after witness comes forward. Children who saw the leaks, workers who heard the groans, firemen who complained of the strange sounds at night. Each voice adds to the mountain of blame. The court hearings stretch for years. 5 years of testimony, documents, and photographs. The judge listens day after day to stories of loss. Engineers draw diagrams of pressure and stress. They speak of gas buildup, thin walls, and poor design. The lawyers for the company argue again and again. They say the tank met standards. They say no one could have predicted this. But the evidence speaks louder. Letters from managers show they knew about the leaks. Reports show they painted over them instead of repairing the steel. The courtroom grows silent as the truth becomes clear. The verdict finally comes. The company is found responsible. They must pay damages to the victims, $600,000 in total. Each family receives a portion. Money cannot bring back what was lost, but it brings justice. The case becomes a turning point in American law. Cities begin to demand stronger safety codes. Tanks, bridges, and buildings must now be tested and certified. Engineers must sign their names to every design. Their names become promises of safety. Boston rebuilds, but it does not forget. The trial ends, but the lesson remains. Progress without care leads to ruin. Every bolt, every rivet, every seal matters, because behind each structure stand lives depending on it. Outside the courthouse, a light rain begins to fall. It washes the dust from the steps. The city breathes easier, though the air still smells faintly of sugar. The flood is over, but its echo remains in every law that follows.
Years pass. The sound of the flood fades from memory, but the story never disappears. Commercial Street changes. New warehouses rise. Children play where the tank once stood. Few of them know what happened there long ago. Old residents remember. They tell the tale to anyone who will listen. They speak of the roar, the wave, the endless smell of sugar. They describe how the earth shook like thunder, how the air turned brown and hot. Some close their eyes when they speak, as if they still see it. On quiet afternoons, dock workers say the wind carries a faint sweetness. They laugh, call it ghost sugar, the spirit of the flood. But the smell is real. Every summer, when the heat rises, the scent returns. It comes from the cracks between stones, from the wooden walls that survived. A scent too strong to ever fade completely. Historians visit the site, taking notes and photographs. They trace the outlines of the old tank, now gone. They read court records and testimonies. They stand in silence where the molasses once flowed. They say the disaster changed how America thinks about safety. It taught cities to inspect, to plan, to build with care. But for those who lived through it, the lessons came with pain. Many lost family, homes, and work. Some carried scars for life. Others carried memories that refused to fade. They said at night they could still hear it, the rush, the roar, the screams. Decades turn to generations. The harbor grows busier again. New ships dock, new cranes rise. Boston becomes a modern city, proud and strong. Yet deep in its heart, the old story remains, told in whispers, passed from one century to the next. In a small museum display, a photo of the flood still hangs. A street covered in dark syrup, men standing knee-deep, faces blank. Visitors stop and stare. Some shake their heads, unable to believe that molasses could destroy a city. But the truth is written beneath the picture. 21 dead, 150 injured, thousands of lives changed forever. Outside, the sea glitters in the sunlight. Gulls cry above the docks. The wind blows in from the Atlantic, cool and clean. But if the air warms just right, the faintest sweetness returns, soft, distant, like a memory that refuses to rest. Time moves on. The flood becomes history, then legend. Yet its message stays alive. Disasters often come with warning, a groan, a smell, a sound that no one wants to hear. In Boston, those signs were there, but people looked away. They trusted the weight of steel more than their own unease. And when the tank fell, it carried that trust down with it. Progress is a strange thing. It builds faster than caution can follow. In 1919, the world was racing ahead. War had ended. Industry was booming. Everyone wanted to move forward. No one wanted to look back. But the molasses flood forced them to pause, to face the truth that safety and greed cannot live in the same place, that human lives weigh more than profit, and that every structure, no matter how strong, carries a soul of responsibility. Today, the streets are paved and clean. Cars pass where syrup once flowed. Tourists walk the harbor and take photos of the skyline. Few think about what lies beneath their feet, yet the ground remembers. The foundations hold the story like a scar beneath the pavement. When storms roll in from the sea and thunder echoes through the hills, some say the sound feels familiar, deep, hollow, like steel giving way. It is only the wind, perhaps, but history has its own way of speaking. The flood did not end with the cleanup or the trial. It lives on in the laws that protect workers, in the codes that demand every tank, every bridge, every building be tested. Lives are safer because of those who suffered. Their pain became a promise. If you walk along Commercial Street at dusk, you may catch it, the faint trace of sweetness in the air, a reminder of what once was, of how beauty can turn deadly, of how memory can turn warning into wisdom.
The city stands now in quiet strength. The harbor reflects the lights of a new century, and beneath that calm surface lies a lesson that endures. Progress means nothing without care, and care means everything when lives are at stake. So the story of the Molasses Flood remains, not just as tragedy, but as truth, as a voice from the past whispering through time. Remember what happened here. Remember the sweetness that drowned a city, and never forget how easily it can happen again.